Hello, everybody. Dr. Arena Kay here again. And today, I'm very, very pleased to introduce you to an amazing guest that we have today. This is Cynthia Clark. Hi, Cynthia. I'm so glad
Hello.
you're here.
Thank
And
you.
Cynthia has an amazing resume, if you will, and I would love to introduce you to her. And I'll tell you about what she did. We actually met at a business event and it fascinated me what she's doing. So Cynthia Clark is the founder of an American company based out of Colorado. It's called Love in Your Hands. Cynthia has worked with over 7,000 people individually, assisting them with relationship and life purpose issues since 2008. Frustrated by the dating world when she got divorced in 2016, she delved into her deep knowledge of palmistry to bring forth a new way of matchmaking. Now that's something I've never heard before, and I'm really looking forward to our discussion here. Now, after going through her own divorce trauma and poor rebound relationship, she found the love of her life after analyzing his hands and seeing the deep compatibility with herself. She's now determined to help singles across the globe find each other and reach new levels of happiness and fulfillment. In addition to the dating membership, she also offers worldwide private consultations and online courses to assist singles in their soulmate journey. She offers a free emotional assessment and compatibility report. I'll tell you at the end where you can get this, because I think there's a lot of people would be very, very interested in knowing how they are and how they are compatible with their now partners, what they can do to understand them better, or maybe find somebody. So, Cynthia, how did you get to this? How did you find that?
Well, it the language of the hands is actually very scientific. So I don't know if you know anything about palm reading at all, but there's so much stuff out there that's really not so great.
Well, that's about what I know about it, that it's kind of, yeah, woo woo and shady practices, someone on the boardwalk and whatever.
Yeah, so I would qualify that there are some fantastic palm readers out there, and then there are those who are, in my opinion, dragging the whole thing down.
Mm.
And those people really frustrate me. I mean, I actually met a lady who said she just made it up. She's like, "Oh yeah, I'm a palm reader, but I just make it all up." And I'm just looking at her like,
Wow.
"Are you kidding me? Like, what are you doing? This is insanity to me." It's like, why don't you pick a field where you can actually make a difference and not make things up? It just, to me, it was totally unethical.
Oh, it is, isn't it?
Yeah, so it frustrated me, but I found palm reading actually through a deja vu experience.
Oh,
And because I have a business background and I ran a restaurant for 7 years. I mean, I've got, I come from more of like this, you know, the really rationalist club, you would call it. So I wasn't into any of that woo woo type stuff that people call, you know, all that stuff. But palm reading actually found me, and it was really interesting because I had run a restaurant for about 7 years and sold it, and took a couple of years off. And then I went to the library one day and I found this book on palm reading. And it was very random. I was just walking up and down the aisles and I just was like, oh, I need a new book to read. And I picked up this book and I'm like, oh, this, I don't know about this. I was I was totally skeptical. But there was something inside of me that said, maybe you should give it a try. And just, that's why you go to the library, right? To find something new and something that you don't necessarily study every day. So I took the book home and I started reading it, and I just had this profound deja vu experience that I had read it before. I had studied this before, and I got this really clear intuitive hit that it's like, you need to study this again. And I was just,
you?
I was just amazed.
Mm-hmm.
So I ended up looking at friends' hands and at the time, my husband's hands and all these people. And I was picking things up that, I was going even beyond the book. And I was
Are
starting
you
to,
saying you actually did this before in this life, or
no,
you don't think
no,
so?
no,
Oh,
I think it was from
wow.
a past life. Um,
Wow.
I felt like it was from a long, like, I can't even explain it. It just felt so familiar, but I had never studied it before. And this was 2008. So I ended up diving full-fledged into palm reading. I got every single book I could find. And
I
I've
can imagine.
probably read about 70 books on the subject by now.
Wow, didn't even know there
Um,
were that many.
You'd be amazed how much is out there. But I found that it really was a language, and it was not anything like I thought it was. And it was scientific. You could measure things, you could read things, it was tangible. You can touch it, you can see it, you can feel it. And ultimately I ended up combining the science and the language that I learned with my own intuition, and new things started to come up. And that's how I came up with this whole compatibility system. I just ended up basically taking another step in the realm of the language and going, hey, guess what? This also ties in with compatibility. You can actually match people based upon their hands. And it's something that most palm readers don't even talk about, because most people hear about, like, how many kids am I going to have? How long am I going to live? Like, those types of questions, by the way, are not accurate.
Okay. I was
Okay.
just trying to ask you that. This is kind of the stuff that people think, okay, that's just a charlatan, right? This is just can't be.
Yes.
So what is it that you actually see then in the hands when you say it's a language? And I know, a physician, I'm thinking, well, I'm guessing I have the long fingers from both of my parents and stuff like that. The genetics. So
Yes.
what else goes into the hands that it's a language?
Yeah, so there's basically three aspects to palm reading that I like to address, because they really do overlay into each other, sort of like a web or a net. You can think of it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So the fingerprints, for example, they form on your hands 5 months before you're born.
Okay.
They're completely formed by that point, and they do not change. So you can burn them, you can cut them, they will grow back exactly the same way.
Right.
So to me, that represents like your soul imprint.
Okay.
So you came in with an imprint, you came in with a set of fingerprints. They're obviously 100% unique to you. That's why the FBI can identify you with fingerprints. But yeah, but there are patterns that exist in the prints, and those patterns have a very recognizable way of being. Okay, so there's actually only 4 types of fingerprints,
Indeed.
and then about 10 subtypes. And so, finite in how they appear. And they also have kind of a language of their own, and they represent the soul's agenda.
Huh.
So you can think of it like the big theme, the big overview of what your soul wanted to experience in this lifetime. Okay.
In this lifetime.
Yeah, in this lifetime. Yeah.
That's
So,
amazing.
yeah. So then we have the hand shapes. Okay. Now the hand shapes, when you look at little babies' hands, they're all kind of the same. They're chubby fingers, and they're kind of short and stocky. They're so cute.
Yes.
Yes, but but they need to be that way, because when you're born, you're basically absorbing everything in your environment. You're learning, and you're picking up stuff, and you're putting stuff in your mouth, and you're actually learning in your new environment as a new little human.
Right.
Sense? So by the time you get to be about 6 years old, and this is also, they've matched it with like the brain states. So you're completely in your subconscious mind when you're a baby till you're about 6.
Exactly.
And that is also when your hand shape takes its final form, and it gels, it sets. And so that's, I look at that as your personality archetype, and that's going to impact you on a subconscious level for the rest of your life. And of course, it overlays with the soul, which is your soul agenda, which is your fingerprints. And then you have the third aspect of palm reading, which is your lines and all the other stuff in your hands, the texture, the finger width and, stiffness and all that sort of thing. All of that is changeable. And that's going to ebb and flow. In fact, they recognize the patterns on the palm, like the lines, all the different lines, as being like a mimic of your neural pathways of your brain.
Indeed. So we know that
change.
you can change the neural pathways of the brain. Are you saying you can actually change the lines in your hand as well?
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely. And I've tracked people over the last 10 years and they do change.
Oh, that's interesting.
So when you think about your free will, and this is why I don't predict, somebody's death. This is why I don't predict kids.
Exactly. Now that makes total sense now.
Yeah, because it's like, well, your hands, both hands actually do change. And you can see especially the little minor lines, you can see the changes over time, sometimes very quickly.
Wow.
And you can recognize when there's a stress, like just as an example, this is kind of funny. I pay very close attention to cuts. Okay, so like when I cut my hand,
okay.
or when my husband cuts his hand and suddenly they're bleeding and, it's like, well, which way did it cut? And I want to pay really close attention to like, well, where did it cut? How did it cut? And then I know exactly what's going on in that person's life at that moment.
Really?
Yeah, it's so fascinating. And it's not always a bad thing.
That if somebody has a scar on a finger like I have from one time when I, hit my finger and got squished in a car and I had to be stitched up.
Yes.
That this was kind of premeditated by what was going on in my life at the time. And that's why it happened on this finger and not on another one. Stuff.
Yes. I am saying that the stuff that happens to your hands reflects directly with how you feel and think and what's going on in your environment.
Oh my goodness, this is amazing. This is like extremely deep.
So as an example, when I ended up getting divorced, okay, there were two things that were going on at that. There were actually three things the universe was trying to tell me, guess what? Your marriage is about to end. And I was it was so traumatic at that time. I was married for 19 years. It was an incredibly traumatic time. But the universe started by breaking my left thumbnail, which the left thumb represents like your family. So your thumbs are your willpower, but your left thumb in particular is like family and close relations and that sort of thing. By the way, this can be reversed if you're dominant left-handed. Okay. So it could be your right hand if you're left hand dominant. Okay. So I do sometimes switch it around, but for the majority of people, and I'm a total right-handed person myself. So
my goodness, I'm like a spaz left with left.
My left hand is like, what is this guy doing? Anyway, so my left thumbnail broke, so I knew something was going on with my family, and I didn't know if it was my dad or my mom or my husband. Like I didn't know, my brother. And then I saw the triple nines, which I don't know if you study numerology at all, but I'm into all these things now. But nines represent completion. And so I started seeing the nines like everywhere. And I would see them on license plates, and I would see them, just constantly in my field. It was like 999, it was 3 nines. And I saw this for like 2 weeks. Wow. And I'm like, wow, something is ending. I was just like trying to figure it out. And, and then something else happened with my hand. Oh yeah, there's an affection line that shows up in your hands. It's actually what most people call the marriage lines, which is a very common misperception again with the hands. Because I don't know if there's like a piece of paper attached to the line. And B, these lines change because all lines change. So I can look at the number of lines. Like they used to look at it like, okay, you have 3 lines, so you're going to have 3 marriages, things like that. That's actually not 100% accurate because it could represent, like it's just showing what you're still connected to. So, for example, some people who have been divorced for 30 years, they could be completely over it. That line could disappear.
Okay.
Okay. So, but you may have a new potential relationship that could be showing up, and that could show up as well. Anyway, one of my affection lines was showing a detachment. And I was like, maybe I'm not reading this right. Like I started questioning my own abilities
Wow.
at the time. And I'm like, I don't know if this is right. And it ended up, everything came together and I was like, wow, okay, this is totally accurate.
Totally accurate.
Yeah.
That's astounding.
It really blew my mind, but it was like the universe will sometimes repeat itself. And
until you get it, hits you with the 2x4, right?
No kidding. And
happened to me too.
And the hands sometimes will do that too, and it'll try to tell you what's going on, and it'll actually repeat things, by either breaking a nail or cutting or things like that. And it's like, wow, okay, interesting, what's going on? Wow. But yeah, I always pay very close attention when a nail breaks or I have a cut.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have never paid attention, but looking back, I don't even know. I one time broke my right thumb, and it's too long ago to be able to, ask you now what could happen. Yeah. That was, again, corroborated.
Well, that would be highly significant, actually, because the right thumb would represent your willpower. And so that would tell me that there was something going on in your life at the time that you felt like you couldn't achieve. Like you weren't getting your way, or you weren't achieving what you were seeking to achieve. So
yeah, like I said, it's too long ago for me to say, yeah, that's exactly what happened. I remember, because I don't. It's too long ago, and
yeah.
So such busy lives, and I was a martial artist, so you got these injuries here and there and whatever. Bang yourself somewhere, got a black and blue. Don't even remember where it came from. Same with the thumb. I know when it happened, where it happened. I don't even know when it happened. It was on the ski slopes, but. Yeah. But I think that's just amazing. So you are actually, people can come to you, partners or maybe prospects, people who want to find out whether they're good for each other, whether they're soulmates or whether they're compatible. And you can look at their hands and say, yeah, there might be some issues. Or you could say, no, you guys, that's amazing. You're going to work out for sure. Is that right?
Well, nothing is ever 100% sure, obviously, but yeah, I have actually found a way to automate the whole system, and that's what I've been working on over the last year, creating a new website and creating a platform where people can actually upload an image of their palm digitally, and anybody can do this worldwide, and it'll give you a result as to what is your archetype. So it's basically what I read. And then it will automatically categorize you with your best matches. So if you're seeking a partner, it's a great way to just go in and say, okay, this is who I am. This is who I'm looking for. And it knows what to do. And then I have obviously more in-depth readings if you want to go into more detail, because the hands are incredibly complicated. So I definitely do readings with couples, and I look at couples' hands together or separate. Sometimes somebody will come on their own,
right,
and want me to read their partner's hand, just with the one person, and that's fine too. And I can do that over the internet. So you can be anywhere in the world as long as you have a computer.
That's so cool. I'm thinking, so it's basically you trying to kind of tell people how to understand themselves better.
Yes.
So they will be able to see, where if there are issues where they can work on themselves as well. Because you said nothing is written in stone. It is actually changeable if you feel that there is something you need to work on yourself.
Yes. And the neat thing about understanding your archetype is it helps you just to be more authentic, you know, and I'm all about authenticity because, you know, if you're trying to be someone else and you're trying to match up with a partner that way and you're not being authentic, it just creates all kinds of problems.
Yeah, no kidding.
And it just doesn't work in the long run. And ultimately, it's like, well, when you're being yourself and you're being authentic and you know what that is, because your hands tell you, I mean, it's so clear, then you can make different choices and you can make better choices for yourself. And it's also about just being more happy and fulfilled, just in general. You know, if you're living your authentic self, you know, you're going to be so much happier. It's like, you know, as an example, I'm a chariot. That's one of my archetypes. And I know that I need to be busy because chariots are always in motion. We're always doing something. And if we don't have something to do, we create something to do.
You said there were 4 archetypes? Did I hear this correctly?
Oh, no, there's 22.
Oh, goodness. Okay.
Yeah. So the chariot is just one example. But yeah, so my husband knows that about me. And he's so great because he supports that. And he wants me to be busy, and he wants me to help people and work with people. And he actually really appreciates that about myself. And I appreciate him for who he is, you know, because we're just so complementary. And I understand his archetype so well. He's an investigator and he's so curious and he wants to know about everything. And he likes to slow things down a little bit. So he slows down my chariot so I'm not running things over too fast. But it's such a
kind of fascinating because both of those, I could say, yeah, that sounds like me. You know, this sounds like me too. And I'm sure, is there, you know, a way, do you have like a main archetype and a sub archetype or something like this?
Yes.
Okay.
I would say everybody has one dominant archetype, but you may actually have up to 3.
Okay.
So when I do a reading for people on a deeper level, I definitely look at what other archetypes might you have. But everybody has at least one. And some people only have one. And some people have 2. A lot of people have 2, but some people have 3. And it's good to recognize them because, yeah, those are going to be the dominant. Now, we do have little pieces of all of them in us, obviously, and we can usually relate in certain ways to each of them, but there's going to be at least one that's very much dominant.
So Cynthia, you said you looked at hands of so many people, you can very quickly zoom into certain things about a hand, right?
Yes.
Can I test you? I'd like our audience to really see how this could work. What if I hold my hand up to the camera? Can you say something about me? And I want the audience to know that we really don't know anything. We didn't exchange any kind of information beforehand.
No, this would be totally new.
Okay.
I haven't looked at your hands yet.
Your left hand, which one?
Well, let's start with your active hand. So is that your right hand? Okay,
that is my right hand.
Back it up a little bit for me so I can see the whole thing. So farther away. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the first thing I like to just check for is your finger length versus your palm length, okay?
Okay.
And I'm just gonna kind of come up here on this. Just hold still for me, okay? Looks like you've got long fingers.
Yeah.
Okay, and it looks to me like your palm is also pretty narrow. So your primary element is water, which is the most adaptable of all the hands. Okay, so we look at the elements of earth, air, fire, and water based upon hand shape versus palm shape. And so a water type is somebody who is adaptable and flexible. And of course, water can take on the form of anything as far as like a liquid, a solid, or a gas. It's the only element that can do that. So you, as a person, are very flexible.
Wow.
And you can fit into different situations very easily. You can morph yourself into different things and different ways of doing stuff. That's your adaptability coming in. You actually do very well to ground with an earth person. So that would be, as far as your compatibility, who's a best match for you. That would be somebody with the exact opposite hand shape as you. So short fingers and a square palm. And what that does is it brings in a beautiful synergy with you so that you can be your flexible, adaptable self. And then that earth person brings in some grounding and you feel supported. And it's almost like they have a foundation for you to sit on. So
interesting.
Yeah. So the next thing I look at is your fingers. And by the way, all the fingers, we talked a little bit about the thumb, but all the fingers actually represent different aspects of yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So again, we're holding up a mirror of who you are. And it looks to me like you are strongest in your, okay, let's just take a look here. Yeah, it looks like your Jupiter finger is your strong finger. That's your index finger. Okay. It's a little bit, yeah, it's a little bit longer than your ring finger, and it's standing tall. It's, you know, kind of thick. It's got some good strength to it. Yeah. I would say your middle finger would be strong too, except for it curves just a hair at the top.
Right.
And anytime a finger bends, it weakens it slightly because it's showing up as a stress.
I see. Okay.
And by the way, that could come from a break as well, you know. But okay, so anyway, Jupiter, your index finger, represents your how you look at yourself. Okay, so it's your power finger. It has to do with leadership ability. Okay, so your archetype combining with water is the butterfly.
Woo, I like that. You know, now I have to tell you something, and the audience. First off, I know that you said you spoke a lot about the numbers as well. You also know about astrology, right?
Yes.
And that goes into this, it kind of weaves into this as well a bit, or no? Because I'm a Scorpio, yes, which is a water sign.
Uh-huh. That makes sense.
That makes sense, right? Now you say butterfly. Guess what my very first tattoo was? A butterfly.
A butterfly. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. I mean, I swear to everybody, she could not have known that.
No, and I haven't read anything on you up to this point. This is all new.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, a butterfly person is actually a very powerful person in that not only is it your energy, like I like to explain the archetypes this way. It's like you embody the energy of that archetype, but you also demonstrate it to others and you allow it to happen in others. So what you do is you help other people transform.
Hey, no kidding. That's my profession, right? Yeah. Wow.
That's what a butterfly is.
Really on the money. I'm like blown away.
Yeah. And to know that about yourself, it's like not only can you make a better decision in your career path, but you can also recognize it in like, okay, this is who I am. This is what I'm doing. And it just helps you make better decisions in everything. So, I mean, it's super useful. And as you can see, I didn't even have to look at too many things.
No, that's true. I don't know what else you look at, but.
Yeah. Well, that's an easy thing for me to check. And that's how I look at compatibilities as well. So yeah, you do definitely best with an earth-handed person and preferably somebody with a strong middle finger. So
I will have to check my husband's hands. I will say that I feel now extremely supported and we get along beautifully. I mean, he is the love of my life. It wasn't always easy. But his sign is Taurus, which I believe is Earth. Yeah. I'm not sure because he has long fingers. He does have long fingers. Definitely doesn't have short fingers. So I don't know.
Well, now the finger length is relative to the palm.
Yes.
So make sure you take a look at his palm relative to his fingers, because maybe he just
it's like similar to mine, because my hands are pretty large. His, of course, are longer, but he doesn't have gigantic hands. So I'm not sure, but I think he has long fingers too. He may have a square palm, but.
Okay, so he might be air,
Uh-huh.
the possibility. That would be the air hand. But yeah, yeah, you'll have to take a look and see what he is.
Definitely. Interesting. Now, you also say you're looking at lines and stuff. They're
Yeah,
like, I know there's major lines and minor lines, right? And I don't remember, I remember, only from the charlatanery palm reading stuff that they say, oh, one is a lifeline, one is a heart line. I don't know about marriage stuff or whatever you mentioned, the
right.
relationships.
Yeah, the lines are the most changeable aspect of palm reading.
Even when I go here, you don't know if you see even these big ones, are these
Yeah,
changeable too?
the big ones, the deep ones are the major lines.
Uh-huh.
So the major lines actually form on your hands about the same time that fingerprints form, but they do change, like I said, over time. But the major lines are they're called that because they're on everybody's hands.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So the lifeline, you're correct. The lifeline is this line that goes around the thumb ball. Okay. Now your lifeline represents more of your vitality and your stability, not how long you're going to live. Okay. But it
Why
does.
do I have two then?
No, that's your fate line, is that other line.
So that one here is not the lifeline. This
No,
one is.
the one that wraps around the thumb, that's the lifeline.
Okay.
Yeah, the fate line is going to be the one that goes up towards the middle finger, usually, but it can start and end in a bunch of different places. The fate line represents more of your career path and your attitude towards work and duties, that sort of thing.
Interesting.
And then your heart line, that's the topmost line up here, that's your emotional flow line.
Mm-hmm.
And then the middle line that goes straight across the hand, starting on the thumb side, that's your headline. And that represents your thinking. So you can see on your hands how you think, how much you think, and you can also see how you feel and how much you feel.
I see.
Okay, so on your hand, you've got a very long heart line, okay, and it looks like it goes pretty much straight across your hand. That's an air heart line.
This
Okay.
one.
Yeah, the top one here. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Going straight across your hand. It's like somebody took a pen and just marked it
Yes.
really clear.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's the case on both hands. Yes.
Yeah. So an air heart line is somebody who is very thoughtful about their emotions.
Oh, okay.
So it means the longer the line is, the more time you spend feeling. Okay. So you feel a lot, and of course you're water, so that makes sense too. But you don't necessarily express all of those emotions until you think about them. So it's like you're thoughtful about how you express yourself, and you're also a very romantic person, because the air heart line just loves that type of romance and planning things out, and plan the trip or plan the dinner or plan the movie, you know what I mean? Like just
yes, I do, which is astonishing me totally. And I wish I had looked at my hands, maybe 20 years ago or something, and because I'm sure that this must have gotten longer or more deeper or whatever, because the law of attraction, I'm coaching, a law of attraction coach as well, tells you to be very mindful of how you think, because your feelings, your thoughts, your emotions are creating your reality.
Yes.
And before that, probably, I lived by default too.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
it would have been interesting to see how it's changed over the years or the decades.
Yeah. So the emotional report that I do for people talks about the heart line. And so I go through all the different heart line types, and I teach you, what is your heart line, and then who are you compatible with based upon that heart line. So everybody can learn, that aspect of their emotional system through that report. So
Fantastic.
It's really fun. And people, the heart line has always been one of interest, I think, for a lot of people, because they want to know, what is my emotional system? And again, it's all about being authentic. So you as an air heart line, it's like, well, go ahead and be that. Like, don't try to fight that. Allow yourself those deep feelings, and allow yourself to explore those deep feelings.
You are amazing. And I want the audience to know I thought that, and it wasn't a good thing to do.
No, it's never good to fight your nature, because it's like, again, it's going to backfire. And there are positive aspects to all of, all of the archetypes and all of the emotional types. And it's like, if you can really understand who you are and you can be that, it's going to make everything better in your life. It's going to create better relationships. It's going to make better interactions in your day-to-day life. It's going to make you're just going to be more happy. That's what it's all about. It's like, why do we try to fight things so much? You know what I mean?
Yes, it's not a good thing.
No.
So you sound very passionate about this. So what is your mission? What is your vision with your work?
My vision is actually a pretty big one. I want to help thousands and thousands of people find their long-lasting love. And I want to do it through these tools that I use every single day that most people don't even think twice about. So my system uses palm reading as the primary way to match you. You don't have to answer a bunch of questions, which may or may not be truthful, by the way, like when you look at profiles.
True, very true.
The hands don't lie.
The hands
Which is what's cool about it too. And I combine astrology and I combine Chinese astrology as well. And, I have learned over the years to not discount these ancient tools, these ancient sciences. Palm reading has been around for over 5,000 years. And, people in our Western society especially don't necessarily value that. And to me, it's such a shame because, palm reading really got a bad rap in the 1500s. And there's a reason why. It was a control thing. And, you could be burned at the stake back in the 1500s for practicing palm reading. And so it went underground, which makes sense. Because it's like, well, of course people aren't going to do it out in public. I want to live. But it seems like it's taking that much time, hundreds of years, to actually come back. And I feel like it is time to put it back where it belongs, in a place of respect, and for people to really know that it's not voodoo, it's not witchcraft, it's not evil. It doesn't go against any religion. It's scientific, it's factual, it's your body. It's a language, it's not anything weird or.
No, it's nature, right? And
it's nature.
It's another way of expressing nature through your body, who you are, and whatever you call it, whether you call it earth and water and fire and air, it doesn't matter. You could call it red, blue, yellow, green. It's all, it doesn't matter what language this is real language, right? That is the real language. The other is just the words you give it.
Right. We study, when you look at what we're studying now, we study stem cells and we study DNA and we study chromosomes. It's the same thing. It's just your hands.
Exactly.
It's a different tool. And
beautiful.
It's an amazing tool, and it's been around for so long, I think, for a reason. And, it's to help us, it's to guide us. It's like any other tool that we use. And there are other good tools, of course, and this just happens to be the one that I use.
They can be complementary, no?
Absolutely. Use it with everything. I've always been the type of person to be like, okay, well, if it's useful, let's use it.
Exactly.
Like I'm all for, other diagnostics and ways of doing things. And, I think the key is just to be open-minded. If you're just totally closed-minded, you're probably not going to learn from it.
Nothing works if you're closed-minded.
Yeah. But if you're open-minded and you have, you go in with a sense of adventure, which is kind of how I look at it. It's like discovering, something new.
Plus it's fun, right? It looks like it's really fun.
It is
and
so
now you
much
have made
fun.
A whole matchmaking platform out of this, right?
Yes.
You created this.
Yes.
That's unique. That doesn't exist. As far as I know, I have never heard of that before.
I have never seen it out there before either. And yeah, I felt so strongly about it that I spent a good majority of last year getting it created. And I'm really excited for people to get in there, upload their hands, start using it, learn who you are. And it's just so, I mean, it's a whole new way of meeting people.
I mean,
And
it sounds easy enough, right? It sounds
yeah.
really very easily doable. And now, why is this better than other kind of matchmaking platforms?
Well, I feel like it's better because it's going from a totally different perspective. And, the majority of platforms will just ask you a series of questions. And, if you're honest about it, you're probably going to get a good match. But if you're not, who the heck knows, and
Right.
I actually was on 3 different dating sites before I got married, and I had the whole range of experiences. So it was really interesting, but my platform really is not about just getting a date. I don't want you just to get a date. I want you to find a deep and long lasting and meaningful connection. Somebody that goes more to that subconscious level of a match rather than
Mm.
we're looking at your similar interests, or we're looking at your proximity to each other, or things like that. Those to me are more like on the surface. And
Yes.
absolutely, they can be important. I'm not saying they're not, but this takes it to a whole different level. And to connect to somebody on that level, I mean, just think about it like this. It's like, have you ever met somebody and you started talking to them and you felt like you knew them? Like
I mean, as a matter of fact, many people tell me, I feel I know you from somewhere.
yeah,
And
that
I'm
kind of
thinking,
connection.
I don't know. I don't think so. I don't, reasonably, rationally saying, I don't think so. But
Yeah.
who knows? Like you said, yes, this deja vu with
Yeah.
with the palmistry. I had this deja vu when I visited Rome for the first time. That was, gosh, I lived in Switzerland, didn't visit Rome. It was from here in 2016. I felt so at home in the city.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, well, something must have, maybe I lived there before, but not in
Yeah.
this life. So, yeah,
Right.
I did have these encounters where people say, and I think I know you, and
Yeah. But that's the kind of connections I want to have for people. I want it to be so easy and
mm,
just so fluid and flowing and fun. It's like they feel like they've known each other for a long time, even though they just met. And that's the kind of connection you can have when you meet that type of deeply compatible hand. So just as the example with my husband, my current husband now, who I definitely believe is a very deep, expansive match, and I'm super grateful for him. But I read his hands on our first date, of course, because that's what I
did he know?
do.
Did you tell him?
And oh yeah, he was totally open to the whole
Oh,
thing. He was
cool.
just so happy to be on a date with me. He's so sweet. But I think he was a little bit scared. And so he's like, all right. And he holds his hand out, and I start looking at it. And I'm like, oh, wow, you're an air, which was a best match for me. And we talked really easily together, and it was such an easy connection. And I felt like, wow, we could just be like best friends. And that's how we started. We started out just as friends. And I think that's one of the best ways to do it, because
Mm,
it builds something, again, when you think of like that foundation that you're building, or
right.
something long lasting.
Well,
So
I'm thinking of my youngest daughter right now that, when then she has this kind of whirlwind romance into long-term relationship that happen, and you see them, you feel like they just work together. It just works somehow. But of course, nobody knows 100%. So I'm
right.
guessing it would help if they could come to you, upload their hands, and you
Yes.
could tell them, no, that's definitely a connection is there that is deep enough for you to be able to commit to.
Yeah.
But-
Well, there's a couple of features on the site that are really cool that I tried to build in to make it easy for everybody. So for example, let's say you're on 3 different dating sites, and you meet somebody on another site and you're not sure, you want to see if they're a match for you through my platform. So you create a profile just for you, and but you ask them for their hand.
Okay.
So say, hey, I want to get to know you better. Can you send me a picture of your hand? So
And
then
that's enough, like a photograph, like, a picture with the cell phone.
yeah, digital picture with your cell phone, and they can send it to you. You can upload their hand into your profile because there's a place to import other people's hands. And you can import as many hands as you want. So you could do your whole family, you could do your, any potential partner, just anybody you want to know more about. It's
Wow.
really fun. So you can do that. And then I also created another part of the site that's just called Ask the Cards. And I actually created a whole deck of relationship cards into the platform where you can even you can type in your question, and then it shuffles the cards for you, and you pick a card, and then it's gonna relate to your relationship questions.
Nice. So
So
I'm sure a lot of people are interested and want to explore this. Where should they go? How can they do this? Where can they get started?
yeah, just go to my website. It's loveinyourhands.com.
Loveinyourhands.com. Sounds easy enough. I'm
Yep.
excited. I think I want to find this out too.
Yeah, it's so much
A lot
fun.
of people will want to because, yeah, it sounds super easy. And like you said, the hands don't lie.
They do not.
Dating websites or whatever people say about themselves, they can definitely lie. But the hands, that's the way they are. The fingerprint is what they are, right?
Exactly. And
Awesome.
it's just so much fun because yeah, you get through to the results page and it's actually going to tell you, okay, this is your archetype, these are your, this is your soulmate match, your great matches, your what I call the fatal attraction, and I dated my fatal attraction for 2 years too, so I totally get that. And he absolutely was, but I learned so much from the experience too. So I'm actually kind of grateful for all my experiences, and I look at them as opportunities for growth. And I think if everybody can learn that too, like don't regret your relationships and don't regret like what you perceive as a mistake, because it's all
Yes,
just part of your growth.
it is.
You
That's a
know?
big one, right?
And just be
You wouldn't
compassionate.
be here where you are now if you didn't have that beforehand, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much from every single relationship I've been in. And ultimately, it's also about the relationship with yourself and, learning about yourself just by uploading your own hand. I mean, you're going to learn
Yes,
a lot.
that's
And
huge.
yeah, and for me, it's just so validating, because it's like, oh, okay, yay, I don't have to apologize for being this way. It's not like it's a bad thing.
No, and I think it also helps people who don't know yet who they are.
Yeah, it helps
Because
them
maybe,
learn.
they have been, everybody got brainwashed into being this and doing that, and they
Yeah,
just maybe don't feel right. Now they
yeah,
can find out why. And it makes so much sense. Like what you told me was the little stuff just on the surface here was so on the money. It's
yeah.
like, yes, Jesus,
It's incredibly accurate. And yeah, people,
fantastic.
the palm readers out there who really know what they're doing are, they will blow your mind. And that's how I got into the field, because I was amazed at how much was there. I mean, it can help you in every area of your life.
Wow,
And
that
yeah,
is so cool.
it's
So
awesome.
glad you have been here with us on the show, and um, I learned completely
Yeah,
new science today, and fascinating.
yay.
I'll
Yeah, it's my
definitely use
pleasure.
it. So I
Yeah,
thank you so much for being here and explaining all of this and doing that test with me even.
yeah, my pleasure. Yeah,
Appreciate it.
It's been a joy to connect with you and all the great work that you're doing. And the other thing I would just like to tell people out there is, don't feel like you got to do it all yourself. That's why there's people like you and me. That's why we're out here. We are here to be of service to you, to guide you in your relationships, and you don't have to feel like you're alone, because
Very, very true.
you absolutely don't have to be alone in the process. And when I went through my divorce, I felt really just rock bottom, horrible, and I went through a lot of it on my own. Thank God I found my friends and the people who kind of got me through that whole process. But it's like, you know what, there's a lot of great professionals out there who are there for you, and they can make it so much easier for you. And don't try to do it all yourself.
Very true. I mean, very, very true. I couldn't have said it any better. A mentor helps tremendously.
Yeah.
Because they're in your corner, they have your back, but they're not invested as emotionally as you are, or maybe somebody who's close to you, who's a friend or whatever, who feels they have to be a certain way to support you.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It brings in a good objectivity, and you can just feel like you can go through your process, and it speeds it up, and it just makes it easier. And ultimately it's about being happy and fulfilled, and I think that's what we all really want.
That's what we all really want. Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm so happy I found my way to happiness and fulfillment every day, but then I also find the shortcuts to get there, and now you are showing us another shortcut, and I'm so grateful for this. So I'm so happy that you have been able to make today, and that we could come together this way.
Yeah, well, definitely my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And
Well, thank you, Cynthia. Thanks so much.
okay, great. Take care.
You too.